Hello and welcome to Campbellot. I'm Terry Lewis, your host for this journey, and I'm here to share with you the story of this magnificent home and about the two people responsible for its design and construction. This is not only a story about the building of this house, but a story about a father and his daughter and their vision for this home in the hills of northeast Tennessee next to Watauga Lake. They put their heart and soul into this house and the conservation and protection of the surrounding land. All of this is their heritage they wanted to preserve for the future. So with that, let's start our journey at the beginning.
The father was Jessie Willard Campbell, who everyone referred to as Bill Campbell. He was a self-made man and worked hard all of his life. He was born in 1916, raised in East Tennessee, and married his sweetheart, Edith Maxine Johnson. Bill was a courageous World War II veteran who survived the Battle of the Bulge. Bill had many jobs throughout his life. He participated in building many houses, including his own with his father, and built his father-in-law's home. Bill and Mac did not have much to give their children, but the one thing they wanted to give to his two daughters were their own homes. His daughter was Andrea Beth Campbell, who was referred to as Beth by her family and as Andrea by her friends and colleagues. Andrea Beth was born in 1957 and was raised in Shook Branch Holler, where her home was to be constructed. Andrea Beth always was a very driven and tenacious person, but she was always a very sensitive, loving, and kind person. She completed her high school education in 3 years and received a certificate from Northeast State Technical Institute so she could go to work as soon as she turned 18. She later went on to receive a bachelor's in computer science, 2 master's degrees, and a PhD in human-centered computing. She was always learning and innovating throughout her short life. The two of them began to collaborate on building her house sometime in the 1970s when she was about 16. This is a picture of the two of them at the Biltmore House, which was one of Andrea Beth's favorite places and one of the inspirations for some of her design concepts of her house. They both looked through many house design books, and they both had very different ideas of what they liked and wanted. She wanted an elaborate but compact design with an upstairs and a roof with many gables. He was more practical and wanted a simple, single-story ranch-style house that was easy and more economical to build. The two compromised on this Bavarian-style Tudor home with an upstairs and 2 balcony decks on either side. Her mother and father purchased the land for the house from her grandmother in 1970. This land was in her mother's family since the 1800s. There are 2 spots on the land where a house could be built. One was in the woods near the Cherokee National Forest boundary, and one was near Watauga Lake. Andrea Beth ultimately picked the side overlooking Watauga Lake. Trees were cut, made into lumber for the first floor of the house. The site was prepared and construction began in 1979 with block for the basement and the floor joist. I first met Andrea in 1978 and we began dating in the latter part of 1978. I first started helping during the construction by helping her father and Herman Hyder attach the subfloor to the floor joist. All I remember about that day was that there was a lot of hammering and nailing, and by the end of the day, I was wore out. I helped as much as I could with the framing of the main house until 1980. In 1980, they were able to get the framing complete of the main house. William Ernie Potter put shingles on the roof, along with 6 skylights. At that point, both her and her father had run out of money. The house was wrapped in roofing felt and was mostly dormant for the next 6 years. I offered many times to continue the project, but they both politely ignored my request. Both Andrea Beth and Bill wanted this to be their project with no outside help. and that they would pay for it as they went along. Finally, in 1986, Andrea agreed to allow me to help financially as we began work on the garage and the house porches. The garage was built as a laydown area for construction materials to be used in building the house. She hired Jerry Miller to do the block work for the porches and garage. The garage framing was again completed by her father, her brother-in-law Elwood Cable, and me. William Ernie Potter was brought back to do the roofing on the garage and to replace the failing plastic skylights with 4 Anderson roof windows on the main house. Here we are pouring the concrete slab for the garage. Next, the concrete block structure for the garage was built. The upstairs floor joists and rafters were built. The upstairs rooms for the garage were framed and the garage doors were installed. Again, the roof and shingles were installed by Ernie Potter. We started turning our attention to some of the internal framing of the main house and the upstairs and the garage. We used stucco board on the outside as part of the basis for the Tudor look. As we installed the stucco board, we also installed windows and doors. This included the atrium doors to the decks and porches and the stained glass octagon in the east and west eaves. The seams between the stucco board were steeled and were painted the color of cottage cream to match the Tudor look. Here we are on the front of the house where we installed stucco board and the upstairs atrium door. At this point, we began framing the decks. The front deck had a roof built into the deck. We also worked on the inside frame. We bought bricks for the fireplace and pavers for the porches and hired Jerry Ford to build a fireplace and chimney. Here are some of the chimney details. At this point, I began the plumbing and electrical wiring. Heat pump ductwork was also installed during this time. Here you can see the board and battens we installed to add to the Tudor look. These battens were made from hemlock that was harvested from the land. Andrea Beth created wooden accents in the corners of the battens and the fleur-de-lis under the windows to enhance the Tudor look. Here is Andrea Beth painting a door in the basement next to an incomplete rough-in electrical panel. We purchased a stove, oven, dishwasher for the kitchen. 1991, we purchased bathroom fixtures, faucets, and tile for the upstairs bathroom. We also were purchasing deck lumber and supplies for the decks. Most of 1991 was working on the decks. There were 3 decks, one in the back of the house, a smaller deck in the front of the house, over the front porch, and one on the east side of the house coming off the kitchen and dining room. Here's Andrea Beth talking about her decks.
The railing that Terry and Elwood put together yesterday. The Chippendale design. We're going to put these all around the house. And nobody around here has one of those here to see. We'll have post caps on top of this.
Show us one of the post caps.
Who are they? here's a series of posts. Caps out of a cap on a 1x4 block. Stacked on a 1x6. Stacked on a 2x8. A series of these will make the post cap. This is an English type design. That the house structures mixture of English, Bavarian, and French. Of course, stained, and all the edges are router. And I've got to go down and make those now. I'll have to stain this some more now. I'll stain this side, and Terry will stain the other side. Because it's too high. And we'll stain them before we get them up here next time.
As you can tell, Andrea Beth was very proud of her decks. We originally saw the Chippendale design on the railings at Monticello, Thomas Jefferson's home.
Tell us about your deck.
This is a Chippendale design. See, it's tighter here, but it's a bit more loose over in the front part of the deck. This is the side that faces the lake and the park area.
How big's the deck?
The deck is 16 by 18. 16 feet wide. And it comes off one of the master bedrooms.
Through that door?
That door. And it doesn't have its post caps. It took approximately a week to put together. The stain on it is on the post, and the railing is Olympic Oxford brown, and the treads are Olympic deck stain, half and half mixture of clove and espresso, which is close to the original Oxford brown that was put on here about 5 years ago. As opposed to the color. There was no deck Oxford brown. Sitting room and dressing area. This is the front deck of the house. Again, it has the Chippendale style railing, which is an old European style. It's complete with the post caps, which each cap sits on a 1x4 routed with a roundover bit, and that sits on a 1x6 routed, and then that 1x6 sits on a 2x8 routed. And they are nailed, each one's nailed separately and held together with a dark bronze adhesive caulk. Reason for using the dark bronze is so, since houses of the Tudor period were usually put together with pitch, so it would have that same authentic effect. The posts are 6x6 hemlock, untreated. Of course, everything else is made of salt-treated wood. Again, the Oxford brown Olympic stains the deck railings and the post caps. And Oxford brown, the original, but 5 years ago, is on the deck floor, but it's going to be restained with the half and half mixture of deck stain of clove and espresso. This deck began construction about July the 10th. Staining the boards and everything. It was during Elwood Cable's 2 week, the last week of his because the posts are screwed in with two 3/4 inch screws from the bottom underneath the 2x8. And the railings actually support side supports along with the ankle pieces. This is prior to the final finishing stain and post caps. It's essentially going to have the same railings as the front deck and the back deck, chipping nail, nails down on the 2x8 joist and one of the deck treads in the house, which is a 2x8x16. The deck in this area is 10x16 feet. This will be the area that comes up as a direct line to the sidewalk along here. It will have 6x6 salt treated posts, unlike the hemlock we've been using. Oh, and these steps with the chip-and-dale railing along here. The intent is the tidal reach tends to make a diamond shape in the pattern. Again, the railings and the posts, and we will have the open the post pattern of the ground stain, and the treads the mixture of the Olympic deck stain, half coat, and half this clay side. The original plan was to have additional railings resting on benches for the build furniture instead, which easily changed. There will also be an exit steps off of this side of the deck, going on the back of the north and lakeside area. And this is the dining room portion of the house, which will probably be used the most extensively in the house, and the deck will be a border to the courtyard, which exists between the garage and the deck, and the entry, which will later be the courtyard.
I worked on finishing the rough-in electrical work. The heat pump was installed and the initial electrical inspection was completed. We worked on the paneling and flooring for the upstairs under each of the eaves as storage areas. We also completed the sheetrock for the upstairs and the downstairs bathroom so that we would have a place to go to the bathroom at the house. We completed the sheetrock for the upstairs and downstairs bathroom. Thomas Joe was hired for woodworking in the upstairs bathroom and in the foyer, which he never completed. We bought cedar for cedar-lined closets from Clayton Spence, had Chown lumber, cut it into tongue and groove boards. Gentry drywall completed the sheetrock for the rest of the house. Here is the finished second floor. The upstairs closets were built in under the eaves in the space behind the knee walls in front of the upstairs bathroom. We painted the sheetrock and completed the finishing electrical work, while C&J installed wood paneling for the upstairs and downstairs bathroom. We used a Roman theme in the upstairs bathroom. We used Kohler products with a bidet, whirlpool tub, and custom cherry cabinets. The entrance to the bathroom has a pocket door. We utilized as much of the house area as we could for storage and closets. This included areas under the eaves, over the porches, and under the stairways. We next purchased bedroom furniture for the upstairs bedroom and sitting area. We completed our final electrical inspection and was approved. The lights were turned on, and that was a pretty momentous day when we had lights in the house. The upstairs second floor was completed. This meant we could live in the house on weekends as we worked on the house. The downstairs bathroom has an English theme with specialty tiles with pictures of Victorian women admired by their gentlemen. The tile has a border of roses, wooden raised panels around the shower tub. Both the upstairs bathroom and first floor bathroom have a laundry chute to the basement laundry room. In 1998, Jim Jones installed kitchen cabinets and woodworking for the dining room. We also tiled the kitchen floors and the dining room floors at this point. The solid oak cabinets have specialty drawers and compartments for pots and pans, along with Lazy Susans in the corner cabinets for easy access. We had a stained glass insert made for the upper corner cabinet by a stained glass store in Jonesboro. When the cabinets were complete, we installed a cooktop, built-in oven, microwave, dishwasher, and sink. This completed the central part of the first floor of the house, giving us a kitchen, 2 bathrooms, and a bedroom. In 1999, we completed the stair treads and risers for the stairs going upstairs. We completed the laundry utility room in the basement. The final heat pump unit was installed in this room, along with a washer and dryer. Now we had all of the essentials needed to live in the house full time. 2002, Shawn Lumber completed the woodworking for the study and the foyer. 2003, the study and living room carpets were installed, and the first floor was completed. At this point, in 2003, Bill Campbell passed away. He barely got to see the inside of the completed house. 2004, the basement steps, paneling, ceiling, and cabinets were completed. This completed the inside of the house, and all of the inside was ready for living. In 2009, we added a wooden fireplace mantel with an Italian marble surround. This completed the French theme of the living room. We were able to live in the house for the next 13 years. During that time, Andrea Beth furthered her education by attending Clemson University, receiving her master's degree in computer science with the goal of completing her PhD. After a botched gynecological surgery in 2008, she was in so much pain she could no longer work at the campus and decided to work from home. October 2015, we learned Andrea Beth had stage 4 cancer and was only given 6 months to live. In 2016, Andrea Beth Campbell passed away after a short bout with cancer. She passed away in the house she so dearly loved. 2017, after Andrea's passing, I felt the need to continue maintaining, completing, and protecting the vision that Andrea Beth and Bill had started. At this point, the roof had been on the house for 37 years. I hired Floyd Story Roofing to replace the roof on the garage and the main house with architectural shingles. Here is how the completed roof looked.
I'd like to document putting in these drain channels. We had a roof in the front porch, and it had deteriorated to the point where it was rotting out the posts. So I cut the roof out, put in these drain channels where they're sloped from back here up front, and they drain out, and expect to put a gutter underneath of them. But my next step is to cover these with a metal roofing material so that even if these leak, the metal roofing will be sloped towards the front, and that should prevent any further leaking. So far I haven't had any problems. Everything went together well. I'm in the process of replacing the posts that have rotted out. This is the first one that I put in, and the second one is getting ready to be replaced.
It was always our intent to finish the outside of the house with stone, and I contracted Johnson City Stone Supply to apply stone on the outside of the house and garage. They finished the sidewalks and porches with the brick pavers that we'd purchased back in 1988. They used stone slabs for steps to the porches and decks. Here's the outside of the house and garage after they finished. I had the driveway moved from its original straight up and down position through the land that we purchased next to us. I had fall branch paving pave the driveway to the house. Here are some of the architectural details of the house. Andrea designed and produced the fleur-de-lis details in woodworking on the outside of the house. Because we financed the house as we went along, never got a loan, we opted for more of the kinds of things we wanted without compromise, such as the moldings, the fireplace mantel, the custom woodwork in the study, the dining room chandelier, the custom tiles and woodwork in the downstairs bathroom, designed by Andrea, and the octagon stained glass windows. All of these details were conceived, studied, designed, and planned from the very first days of construction. Andrea Beth was very proud of her accomplishments. She wrote in 1990 that Campbellot would be her life's work of art and her memorial when she was gone.
It's been my pleasure to share these memories and stories of Campbellot. I have the rare privilege of knowing these two wonderful individuals and living in this beautiful home, hopefully the rest of my life. I have dedicated my life and resources to make sure their memories and efforts will be preserved so that this piece of their lives is never forgotten. Thank you for allowing me to share their story with you.